This isn't another pre-bolusing video. You already know that you're supposed to pre-bolus for your meals, and your clinic likely told you 100 times. But if you're someone who just doesn't have time for it, and you're currently bolusing as you eat, you're actively choosing to spend the next 4 hours fighting a massive high blood sugars. That's the hard reality I want to share with you right at the front. You sit down to eat, you bolus, and then 2 hours later, you start climbing up to 14 millimoles on your CGM, completely exhausted and frustrated because you know you now have to spend the next few hours fighting a massive blood sugar high or blood sugar roller coaster. Your diabetes clinic tells you to fix this, you simply need to pre-bolus. But let's be real here, it feels pretty unfair to have to sit there and stare at your food 15 minutes when you're hungry and everyone else around you is already eating, just because you have a condition that you never asked for. So you tell yourself that you don't have time, I can't wait, and you bolus as you eat. But what if I told you by doing that, you're actually sacrificing more time and energy than you're saving? I'm Curtis, I'm an ex-paramedic and a type 1 coach. To get the perfect flat line after a meal, you have to nail 3 dimensions: input, sensitivity, and timing. Today, we're entirely ignoring the first 2 and we're focusing strictly on the 3rd dimension of timing. Specifically, we're going to cover 3 things to do with timing: the brutal time trade-off you're currently making every time you don't have time to pre-bolus, the sprinter versus the freight train biology of insulin, in plain English, and why the standard 15-minute rule is hurting your time in range. Stay until the end because I'm going to put the Pre-Bolus Visualiser on screen that I use with my clients, and I'll show you exactly what a pre-bolus looks like when you map the insulin curve against your food. Once you can actually see it and visualize how this works, you have all the information that your daily bolusing decisions need to finally start flattening out those post-meal spikes. A quick reminder, I'm a coach here, I'm not your doctor. This is for educational purposes, so consult your medical team before making changes, and remember, you're the only one living with your condition 24/7, so only you can be in charge of it. Variable number 1 is a little bit of a mindset shift. I don't have time. The biggest trap in diabetes management is the belief that skipping your pre-bolus is somehow saving you more time and energy. Refusing to wait 15 minutes now with the pre-bolus means you're actually choosing to spend the next 4 hours being hypervigilant, looking at your CGM, feeling lethargic if you're going high, or calculating correction doses. You're not actually eliminating the effort of doing a pre-bolusing, you're just deferring that effort to a little bit later. 15 minutes of discipline, if you want to call it that, waiting at the beginning buys you 4 hours of mental freedom and confidence because you know that your blood sugars are going to be more level. Once you can begin to see this trade-off of effort and energy, and you can accept that 10 or 15 minutes wait is a reasonable investment of your time for your mental energy, you can start to then learn about the biological race that makes it necessary. I'm not saying it's fair that you have to wait, but I'm saying this is where we are. This is the reality of the situation, and these are the choices you have. To understand why bolusing as you eat fails, you have to look at the race happening in your bloodstream. Carbohydrates act like sprinters. They hit your bloodstream, or they start to hit it in sort of 5 to 10 minutes, and they peak rapidly depending on the meal. Now, rapid-acting insulin is actually not so rapid. It's a bit like a freight train. It takes 15 to 20 minutes just to start moving, and it does not reach peak strength or speed for 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the insulin and your body. If you fire the starting gun for both at the exact same time, by eating and injecting simultaneously, the food wins hands down every single time. And there's a gap between the 2 peaks, and that's what causes the spike. But if you manually or forcefully give that freight train a head start, that's the only way it catches the sprinter at the right peak speed. But that head start is not the same for every single meal. This is where standard clinical advice can fall apart a little bit. Your pre-bolus must be based on the glycemic index of your food. High GI foods are violently fast and require a longer head start than low GI foods. So like I mentioned, on the other side, low GI foods digest slowly, meaning a standard 15-minute wait might actually cause a severe low before the food even arrives because the insulin is moving too quick. You gave the insulin too much of a head start here. So the bottom line here is that you can't use static rules for a dynamic biological system. And that's exactly why you need to map this out visually before you can eat. Not every time, but it really helps me and a lot of my clients to visualize what's going on here and what we're trying to achieve. This is the Pre-Bolus Visualiser we use inside Level Diabetes. So you look at the gap right here. If you shift the insulin injection back by 15 or 20 minutes, watch what happens to the peaks they finally start to align. You aren't changing the amount of insulin here. You're simply changing the deployment time, or the starting gun, to match the digestion speeds between the sprinter, the food and the carbohydrates, and the freight train, which is your fast-acting insulin. So we've talked a lot about pre-bolusing here, and it can be a game changer if you're not doing it currently. But if you are currently doing pre-bolusing and you're not getting the results you're after, it could be a number of other things. If you're exhausted by roller coaster blood sugars and you don't know if it's your basal, your carb ratios, your sensitivity factors, or if it is actually a timing issue, I would recommend you take the free Clarity Compass quiz. It's an assessment that tells you exactly which biological lever is your most likely bottleneck at this point. So it recommends that you should put your energy in focusing on that first if you want to get your life back with type 1 diabetes. So you can find a link in the description to start that quiz and to start managing your type 1, taking your life back from it rather than being led by your type 1. I'll see you next week.